Senator Jaffer.
Thank you for your presentation. I would like to get a little bit of a handle on, before this bill, when, the last election, if a person came to vote without an ID, a homeless person, let's say, without an ID, and because you've been doing this for a while, you probably know the people who come to vote. How did you handle it before this bill comes into operation? How would you handle a homeless person who has no ID? What steps did you take?
Well, it was interesting in the last election. While they allowed VIC cards to be used for youth and in long-term care facilities, they were not allowed for the homeless to be able to use those. So in that particular case, if they were affiliated with a shelter, then I believe, and I'm not sure of the ins and the outs, but I believe in that particular case that it would have been an administrator from there that would have done an attestation for them, but they were not able to use VIC cards.
But they would do an attestation, so this person would be able to vote.
For someone that then, if they actually slept somewhere, that they had some sort of an address or a link with that, but if they didn't, I think they would have really had a hard time to be able to determine what an address would be. But wouldn't be dissimilar again, I'll just stop there.
How did you handle it?
In Provencher, we don't have anybody that's...
What if a person turns up and says they have no ID?
Well, we do have shelters still.
Yes.
Those are usually shelters for women who are abused. So in that situation, then we've had attestations being used. For somebody that doesn't have ID, I gave that example of a wife, and this is very, very common, usually with seniors, where the wife won't have anything. They'll come to the polls, and the husband has his ID, and his wife has none, so he'll vouch for her.
So, and this is very important that many the wives have, and you have experienced that yourself.
Yeah, I've been there when it's happened.
And when you say, you mean ID with an address or an ID period?
The husband has proper ID. Okay. The wife is on the list but has no ID with her.
And he vouches for her or attests for her. Sorry.
Right.
The other question I had was that, the elections officials who run the polls, they get adequate training for that. They accept that, but not enough training as a full-time employee. So if somebody was going to be denied the right to vote, should there not be somebody senior in that polling area?
There is.
And that's the person who makes the decision in the end.
Well, the central poll supervisor will call the returning office to let us know of the situation, so we can help in that regards. And most often we'll end up talking to the elector themselves. So then we deal with it.
So there is a senior person besides the polling person?
Yes, and not all polling places will necessarily have the senior person there at that time. There's central poll supervisors that are also roaming ones, especially in our area, where they'll be responsible for 3 different polling stations, or polling places, I should say, and they'll go from one to the other and spend a fair bit of time at each. So that's what we end up doing.
And do either of you have any reserves in the...
We have one reserve.
And I understand that many people living on reserves they have ID, but they don't have addresses on their status card.
Right.
How have you dealt with that in the past?
Well, we have Rosa River Reserve in our district, and we have a community relations officer that we are in contact with, and pretty much we run everything through that person. And they're the ones that help us set up, let's say, a registration booth in the community, so that people can come and register. We were allowed to use the voter information cards for those electors. Our voter turnout there is very, very low. The percentage is almost non-existent. So there's a lot of resources that go into actually getting, making it possible for them to vote, but it isn't necessarily used in that area.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.